started. So welcome to the OTF Connect session, Comparing Tools for Digital Portfolios with Jacqueline Calder. And Jacqueline is a very experienced teacher with the Simcoe County District School Board, and I'm really proud to say that I've had the opportunity to work with her for several years, and if there's one person in our school board that's the go-to person for anything digital, that would be Jacqueline. So as with all of us who are from all over Ontario, I'd like to welcome Jacqueline to share just a tiny bit of what she knows about using technology and embedding it into classroom practice and also in our professional development. So, without further ado, Jacqueline, are you ready to start?
I most certainly am. Thank you, Melly. Can everybody hear me okay? Can we try that green checkmark tool if my sound is coming through okay? Excellent. Okay. So if I start to sound like a chipmunk, it means that you've just had a little bit of delay in your bandwidth and it's catching up. I'm not using any helium tools over here tonight. And it is great to see a bunch of folks from Northern Ontario as well tonight. I started teaching in Moosonee, Ontario, which is not north in considering where you guys are from, but in terms of its landscape and its weather. It is north for much of Ontario, so it's great to have, I wished when I had taught up there that we had had professional development opportunities like this one, because that feeling of isolation can sometimes be a little bit unfortunate when you can't physically go and attend sessions all over Ontario. So my plan for, I should give you a little bit of background. I am a secondary teacher by trade. Right now I'm working with my school board as a technology-enabled learning teacher contact, and in the past I've been a technology or information communication technology consultant. And I've had lots of opportunities to play in elementary schools. So I'm trying to look at this through a K-12 lens, but if I'm missing something or if you have a question that I've brushed over or something that I haven't considered because of my comparative lack of experience in elementary, please let me know. That being said, I work with a K-12 team and I have run this through a few of them to make sure that we aren't missing too much. So my plan for tonight was to spend a few minutes, maybe 5 or 6 minutes, talking about some of the why we're using digital portfolios, recognizing that when we're having those conversations, we're clearly talking to the converted already. Folks are looking at that as an option if you're here. The other thing we're going to look at was going through a list of different tools and looking at what devices they work on, some of the strengths and features of each of those digital tools so that you can start to make an informed decision before you invest a whole bunch of time into a different digital tool, so that you can see some of these, even if it's just a 2-minute little video overview, but then we can have some conversations and ask questions. Try and get your head around some of the features before. You're still going to need to play with the digital tool before you decide for sure it's the one you want, but this might narrow down like the 6 or 7 tools we're looking at, so that maybe it's 1 or 2 that you're going to focus on and make a decision. Does that work for everybody? Can I get another thumbs up if that is an okay plan for everybody? And if there's something that hasn't been addressed there, or as we go, feel free to add, but if there's something else, then throw it in the chat if there's something you'd like to do. And thank you, Heidi and Mally. The Google Slide version of these slides, like the online cloud version, is there so that you can access them anytime. And you'll also get an email after the session within a couple of days or so that has a link to the resources and everything. It'll be pasted on the resource page. Okay, so it sounds like our plan is okay. So let's have a quick actually, I do want to use the green check mark and the red X one more time. This is where I get myself into trouble. I'm going to ask folks if you're elementary or secondary, and I always feel a little bit bad giving one the red X. So I'm going to pick on the panel I'm from for this time. So if you're in secondary, can you choose the red X? If you're in the elementary panel, can you choose the green check? Oh, what a great balance. Good. Perfect, thanks. I'm going to clear, oh, awesome. So one more time, I'm going to use the green check and the red X. Can you give me a green check if you have tried using either digital portfolios or pen and paper portfolios in the past in a classroom, or have worked with people who have? Cool. Awesome. So we're going to draw on some of those experiences, and we might ask folks to speak up if they have experiences with different digital tools that we are looking at, and that would be great, and learn from that. I have played with all of the digital tools. I have not had the opportunity to implement every single one of them in my class for an extended period of time, especially because I'm out of the classroom this year, but I have had a chance to work with teachers who are using them, and most of them, at least half of them, I've used for full semesters in my class. Okay, so let's talk about the why for a quick second, or a couple minutes. Just recently, Ontario has released what they're calling the 21st Century / Global Competencies, and these are still in draft form. I keep checking the website every day, and they haven't been posted officially yet, so I'm hoping I don't get myself in any trouble talking about these today, but I'm going to write down, there you go, in the chat, edugains.ca. That's where they will be posted. They were supposed to be there kind of last week, and then this week, and then yesterday, but I already had this kind of plan to talk about, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about it anyways. Some of you have looked at different frameworks that are very similar to these. Some of you call them the 6 C's, where you've got your critical thinking, creativity, character, collaboration, communication, and citizenship. These are very similar. We're going to go through them fairly quickly, and then remember that link, and we'll make sure that link is in the resource too. I was hoping I would have the link to the real competency framework posted, but we'll go through them here, and this is based off the draft one that was released as a hard copy in some Ontario sessions this year. And the idea is that these are the competencies that students need before they leave high school to be ready for the real world, if you will, or after they leave high school. These are the skills that they need to have. And so the first one, the critical thinking and the problem solving, this is that deep, rich, going through an inquiry process, making connections so that they can solve problems, transferring knowledge from one area to another, one situation to another, one context to another, and taking concrete steps and being able to make a plan and go kind of through with it. And so the critical thinking and the problem solving is the first one of those set of competencies. And those letters in brackets, I don't have those on the slides, but you'll notice when you see the real document, they're connecting to areas that the Canadian the Council of Ministers of Education in Canada have highlighted. And so they're connecting those competencies to areas that they've looked at. And if you go to the link that Mally posted up here, the Google Drive link there, you'll see those areas are on the full document. And when we get our EduGains official document, you'll see them there as well. So the next one is the innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship. That idea of looking at problems as opportunities and starting to look and make connections from knowledge they have to start building solutions to rich problems, taking risks and trying new things. That entrepreneurial spirit. And then we have this one. So some of us may have looked at this one before as being that kind of character thing. Ontario has Ontario-sized it, if you will, and has made it a little bit more focused on the learning to learn, that self-awareness, directing their own learning. And so it's really kind of focused on the metacognition component of things, the reflection part of learning, the reflective part of learning, adapting and resilience, and that growth mindset. So that's this component, these competencies. That's this part of those competencies. Then we have the collaboration component, where students can work from a group of different perspectives and come together to be effective, be constructive. The communication in all forms of media, and that idea of being able to express your point of view in an appropriate manner, and as opposed to not expressing it or to over-expressing it, just that kind of working on effective communicating. And then we've got the global citizenship, breaking down the four walls of our classroom, and the students reaching out and working in different local and global communities. And I think a lot of us have looked at those different things in the past, and I think it's kind of a relief when someone in Ontario gets up and says, these are important. These are the competencies our students need. These are to be integrated within our education. And it's what a lot of teachers, especially teachers that are looking at things like digital portfolios, are naturally doing and focusing on anyway. So to have that kind of backup is quite nice. But the problem comes from is how do we assess this? How do you assess that a student learns from and with diverse people? What happens? How do we track that? How do we start to focus on pushing students in those areas and really working with that? And right from Growing Success, right from the beginning, there was the idea of that triangulation of evidence of learning. So the idea that our evidence of learning should be coming from the products that we're traditionally used to, that students are handing in or submitting, but there's also that conversation and observation component. And there's a bunch of different ways to look at those observations and conversations and products, and that it's quite a long list. And again, this brings us right back to that question: is how do we assess this? How do we track this? How do we monitor that? And this is probably where a lot of the interest in digital portfolios and portfolios in general is coming from, is that ability to track and monitor this. And so a lot of the tools we have tonight let you record and monitor and keep assessment for the observations and the conversations, as well as some of the products, depending on how they fit into the digital world. Okay. So that's kind of, does anyone have thoughts about those global competencies or the connection to the Growing Success, or anything that they'd like to add, or questions kind of about this stuff before we head into the digital tools? Does a green checklist, if this kind of fits along the lines of why you're interested in the idea of digital portfolios? Or if you have another reason, would you type it into the chat if it's not in line with these reasons? Okay, so everyone's thinking that this is pretty much where they've been heading, and have been looking for tools to support them doing this effectively, because this can be difficult for a teacher to manage all this stuff. Okay, great. So I'm not crazy, well, I might be crazy, but not on this. Okay, so here's the digital tools that I'd like to work through this evening to take a look to help us with solutions to some of those assessment questions and stretching our mind with some of those things. We've got FreshGrade, Sesame, Seesaw, Onenote, EduSite, and then our virtual learning environment in Ontario, which is D2L, has an e-portfolio tool within it. And these are the devices that they work well on. And so FreshGrade, you can access as a teacher from the web browser, and then you can access from the teacher from the iPad app, which is actually almost a little bit better than the web browser version sometimes, although it has been updating and changing recently. And then students have an app as well, and parents, and those are available on they can log in on the web, but they have the iPhone and the Android for the student and parent. To my knowledge, at this point, there isn't a teacher app for the Android yet. So if you're a teacher who uses an Android phone and has no other mobile device for capturing things on the fly, then you would have to take those photos from your phone, get them onto your computer to upload. Just something to keep in mind. The Sesame has the web browser, again, in the same way, and then the iPhone and the iPad app, and it doesn't have an Android app either, yet, anyways. And so again, if you were using an Android phone or mobile device to capture things in a classroom, you would have to capture that media and then bring it onto your computer to get onto the web. Seesaw has an app for all of them, and it actually even has an app for Kindle Fire tablets. And OneNote has an app for everything. And EduSite has a web browser and an iPhone or iPad app. And the VLE or D2L's ePortfolio tool has an app for mobile devices, and then you access it through D2L on your web browser or regular computer. And we will talk about each of these tools in detail. We're going to go through each one of them, but this is just kind of a compatibility. Anyone see any corrections? First of all, am I wrong on any of these? Or has anyone have any questions or thoughts about the compatibility on different devices for the different digital tools? So I'm thinking that some of you might be kind of making, having thoughts in your head, well, that excludes one for me, or that makes one more attractive than another one for me, or maybe you have some different thoughts in your head about any of these. Yeah, so that was something I was going to talk about at the end, Heidi, is that there's Google Sites to use to create websites for as an e-portfolio, as a collection of things, and we were going to have a conversation about that at the end as well. Have you used Google Sites, to create an e-portfolio, or were we thinking of a different tool within Google Apps? Yep, you can use forms and then collect them into a drive. That's an interesting idea too. Let's have a conversation about that after we've gone through a few of these tools for sure. Absolutely. Anything else? Any other thoughts? I don't see anything else coming in here. So let's go to the next slide then. And again, you have access to these slides, so don't worry about having to remember all that. Okay, here's just an overview, and some of these features were difficult to categorize. So the audio video notes, what that means is that on a mobile device you can capture audio, you can capture video, and you can capture notes kind of easily on it. And for all of them, with the exception of the OneNote capturing video, they all do have a way to capture the audio recording and then the notes as well. The drawing means like drawing on the screen. So there's no drawing in FreshGrade, there's no drawing in Sesame. Seesaw has a strong drawing component, and we'll see what this means when we go through it. And the reason I made that a feature to look at as an overview is that from my personal experience when I was teaching math, that was very helpful to have a student be able to draw to explain their thinking. And so that was very helpful. But you can get around that by taking pictures of pen and paper drawings. So it doesn't always make or break how you use it, if a tool is worth it for you. The other thing that sometimes the drawing means is that you can draw over top of an image that you've already created or another kind of file. The orange circle under drawing on OneNote is because OneNote lets you draw on it on a PC computer, on an Android tablet, on a Windows tablet, on an iPad, on an iPhone, but you can't, oh sorry, not on the iPhone, but on the iPad where it's big enough. But you can't draw on the screen on OneNote on a MacBook or a Mac computer. So that's why that little circle is there. And the stream means that you get a stream of student work that you can go and do quick glances through. So an entire class's entries, if you will, or artifacts that they're putting onto their portfolio come into one stream, and you can glance through it and see what everyone's done in the last, hour. Or you can keep going way further back than that, but you get like a stream where everyone's work comes into one place for the teacher. That is the case in FreshGrade, Sesame, Seesaw, and in EduSite. And then the curriculum means that there's actual connections to the curriculum expectations for Ontario, and that is true in FreshGrade, Sesame, and EduSite. The assessment component or the gradebook component is attached to the portfolio. So the portfolio part is the collecting of the artifacts or the evidence, and then the gradebook is that it has something where it's storing assessment, summative assessments, or assessment grades or marks or levels. And FreshGrade has that. And, Sesame does have that. I don't know why I have an X there, sorry. Good thing I caught that. We'll have to fix that. EduSite does that, and the D2L has a gradebook within D2L. It's outside of the portfolio tool, but it all connects and plays well together. And then the announcement feature, the ability that you can push announcements out to students and that parents can see that as well. FreshGrade has the announcement feature back and forth, and the D2L as well has a notes feature or an updates feature, news items on D2L. Any again, these are just a quick overview, and we're going to come back to these two slides again with the devices and with the features after we've gone through the different tools. But at a first glance, any thoughts, questions? Here we go. Wondering about feedback options and transferring portfolios year to year. That's a great question. As we hit the different tools, remind me of that, because I didn't put that in as a feature to talk about for every single one of them. So Katie, remind me as we go, and we'll talk about what that would look like within different tools. And there's a big difference. For most of these tools, for something like FreshGrade, Sesame, Seesaw, they all have free teacher access so that I could go in and create my own account and go with it for my class. But there's none of the transfer stuff that you've just talked about. But if we bought it as a whole school board, then there is that ability to connect with the students, and it connects with the student information system, and it tracks through with them. So there's a bit of a difference between if you go whole system-wide or if you've chosen a tool on your own and are just using the teacher version of it. Does that make sense, that description, that explanation? And I think for most of them that is the case, but okay. But we will, if there's any specifics as we kind of go through, we'll talk about it. And the VLE, the D2L one, stays with the student forever. So that one, or throughout their entire use within your board on their D2L. So that means that if a kid creates stuff and puts it in their portfolio in kindergarten, it's still there when they're in grade 12. It's in their portfolio, and it is separate from the teacher's classroom. So they can submit things to their portfolio in D2L and connect it, share it to their teacher, so their teacher sees it. But the next year, it's still in the student's portfolio. It doesn't stay with the teacher, it stays with the student. So D2L, our virtual learning environment, is amazing for that kind of carryover. Okay, let's go and talk about FreshGrade. Out of curiosity, has anyone here ever used FreshGrade? Either just a yes in the chat or a check mark if you've played with FreshGrade or kind of messed around with it. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Good. Well, then let's take a look at it. FreshGrade is a very user-friendly tool, and let's start. So this video here, let me grab. Sorry, I'm just going to grab the.
I did, Jack.
Oh, thank you. I grabbed the link, and we're going to take let me just see how long it is. This one's the longest video, actually, that we do have. It's about 5 minutes long, and we're going to try it for web.
Yeah, I put it in the web tour.
Perfect. So we're going to see if we can get it to show up right on the screen and make it a little bit easier for people that are participating by mobile devices.
So
if not, we have the link in the chat.
Yeah, so if you are on a mobile device, you need to click on the link that I put in the chat. If you are not on a mobile device, you'll hopefully be able to see it on the whiteboard. And when you're finished viewing it, if you can just please put a green check mark.
Just a reminder when you're done, if you could click the green check mark. Okay, I think we are mostly finished there. Awesome. Thank you, Mally. You are so awesome. So, perfect. So the things that make FreshGrade stand out to the other tools, and I'll do this for each tool, talk about the things that make it stand out, it has a messaging system to send out announcements. I don't think any of the other tools do have it in quite the same way, except for the VLE and the parent access on this one. The other thing FreshGrade does is they have a parent permission form that you can download, adapt, and use yourself. And they make you check off a box that you have parent permission before you use their tool. And I think this is an important concept to talk about across all of the tools, because you'll have to know your own school board policies. But in our school board, I can't put personal information, so OSR type information, identifying information onto a third-party tool. So I have to be very careful about what information I am putting onto this tool, and so I can either use a nickname for the students, or I can not use their last name. I can use an initial, and I do different things, and I can make sure that parents have signed off on that as well. And so I tell them exactly what I'm going to use when I create the student account, and I go from there. This tool, FreshGrade, works really good when you have either have their own devices, because they would have to log in and out of the the app. So if you have 5 shared iPads in your classroom, this tool does work really well as long as your students are able to log in and log out themselves. Unless you have a culture that you're comfortable enough leaving the teacher signed in, and then they have to create take the picture and then tag themselves. So there is some thought that way, and this tool is really great on an iPad for a teacher. The stream is really pretty. The web-based tool is great and is getting better all the time, especially as I spend more time with it. But having an iPad, I really do like that, to look through all of the student stream and to see everybody's learning come together. That same kind of stream doesn't really show up on the web app, like on the browser on my laptop. I can create assessments really nicely on my computer. I can tag students. I can post documents and files and attach them to different students, and I can use that gradebook really nice. It's a really nice reporting feature that I can do like a quick report, and then I can just share it with students and parents. At any point in time, I can enter in some text and a couple of pictures right from their portfolio, and it goes into a nice little PDF and works nicely. But the stream of all my students' work into one place doesn't work on the website. I have to click on each student to see their work. Again, not a big deal. I just like having that iPad so that on the fly in the classroom, I can be walking around looking at who's posted what as we go. So I'm wondering about people's thoughts or questions about FreshGrade. So this tool is a free tool to use on your own. So as you as a teacher go and set up a class on here, that's free. And then boards can purchase it as a much bigger system that integrates with their information systems and has that kind of carryover feature that Katie was talking about earlier. And there are boards out in British Columbia and Surrey that do that with this for sure. So I'm wondering about thoughts and questions and whatnot about FreshGrade. I hear you, Amanda. Now, Amanda, are you secondary or elementary? And do you work with a lot of students that have their own devices then?
Yeah, I have some kids who will bring in their Chromebooks and their iPads and that, but not all of them do.
But it makes a big difference, doesn't it, when the Android works and like when it works on all of the devices for the students, and your own is an Android one too. Yeah, that makes a big difference. Yeah, the data storage from year to year, Heidi. It's a great question. So in the free teacher one, just the teacher is going to be able to hold on to that. It won't. The students would get connected to a new teacher as they go, and if it's not connected, to the big system. So as teacher, when you use these tools as a free tool as a teacher, you're just getting it for your class for that time frame. Did that make sense? That came out really awkward. Basically, it doesn't carry over very well.
Okay. Is there any opportunity for students to download the artifacts that have been uploaded in their file?
Wow, that's a great question that I don't off the top of my head know the answer to. I will I'm going to look into that after. I'm going to make a note of that here. Just give me 2 seconds here. And then I will try and find out that answer in the for the resources. Sorry, when you guys get the resources sent out to you later, I'll try and add that in. I'll put that on a slide within this Google Drive slide deck. How does that sound? Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd never thought about them downloading everything. And now a lot of the stuff, if they were using their own devices, would be on their own device because it would have been a picture they took. Anyways, I'll look into that and investigate that more. I never thought about that aspect if they could archive everything themselves. Cool. Let's see. Okay, so those are the questions that we've had for that. Okay, so let's go and take a look then at another tool. And another tool that does very similar things. So there's a bunch of links on the page, and I actually copied this one myself, Molly, because I knew that was ridiculous. It's that video there, that's the first YouTube video, not the first link. It's the second one on the page there. We're going to do another web tour again and watch a video. So Sesame is very similar to FreshGrade, except there are some significant differences that can make or break whether or not it's one that works for you or not. So we're going to watch this second video, and we're probably best to just, instead of doing a web tour, let's just all follow it from the chat so that we can just open it up in another browser. If everyone clicks on that YouTube video that Mally's just posted in the chat, can I get a green check mark that actually opens up for you and you're seeing that video now? Because I don't want to. We will do a web tour if that works better, but I think this saves a little bit of time of going in between back and forth the web tour and the slides. So it seems to be working for most people. Let me know if it doesn't. If it doesn't work for clicking on it, try copying and pasting it into your browser, into a new window for your browser. And then if you ever lose the Blackboard Collaborate or this classroom, if you look along your computer, it's usually the purple icon that you're opening up.
So again, once you're finished watching that video, if you want to just put a green check mark in, and then we'll know to go on to the next one.
All right, so I'm going to mute my mic now, and I will be quiet for the length of the video, and then, yeah, a green check mark when we come back here. Awesome. So that one, the voice was a little annoying. Sorry about that. A little monotone, as Amanda pointed out. But I think it was a good overview of some of the extra features on that one. We're going to jump right into another video here. Sorry, but I want you, this one's only a minute long, to see what the app looks like, because that video didn't show the stream part of it very well. So I'm going to shut my trap again and mute my mic, and just for the 1 minute, if you could watch the other video that's just been posted, that Mally's just posted in the chat there right now, that would be great. And it gives us a pretty picture of the stream component of it a little bit more, and the on-the-go app side. So I will be quiet now for a minute and a half. Okay, so I think everyone's had a chance to see those two videos now. So a couple things that make Sesame different, and I used Sesame, would have been last year for a math class for a couple different reasons. One was because my students all had laptops, but they didn't all have mobile devices, and so Sesame had this thing where you print off your class list, and each kid's name has a QR code, and I just taped the kids' QR code to the front of their books, and they are, you can write it on the wall maybe, index cards, And they could grab one of our shared devices and open up the Sesame app and then scan their QR code and then enter in the picture of the problem that they had been working on or the 3D model they had been building, and it goes right to their portfolio. So they didn't have to physically log in. They could just scan that QR code. So in my circumstance last year, Sesame worked really well because my kids were secondary and it was math, and that QR code with a couple shared devices worked really well. Sesame also, since then, and they didn't have this when I used it in the past, has added on this whole new planning aspect where you've got the whole kind of lesson planner in there for lessons and units. When I used it in the past and still now, they're very Ontario curriculum focused. If you connect to the Ontario curriculum, you can make those rubrics really quickly based on your expectations and the knowledge, understanding, and inquiry, communication, and application. And so that works really well. The parent access in this case is view only, whereas I think, unless that's changed, but I don't think it has in the last maybe a week or two, and I'll explain why I'm so worried about these things changing in a couple of seconds when we get to the next tool, because it changed today. But the parent access on Fresh Grade that we looked at before, they can make comments and there's a bit more room for dialogue there. In this case, I can give parent access to their students by adding their email, and they can just view it. And so that's there. But the Sesame one, I find it's way more focused on the grading component or the assessing component while you're working with it. You can still take pictures and add anything you want without any assessment component at all. There's still the portfolio piece, but all those sliders and rubrics let you integrate some of the assessment into that and then a picture with it as you go. And then there was one other thing I was going to say, and I lost my focus. It will come back to me. Sorry. I'm just going to look at the questions now that are in the chat. So no, I would definitely not say it's superior to Planboard for lesson planning. It connects right to assessments in your portfolio or the different portfolio components, but definitely not superior. If you're looking for like a really good lesson planning, Planboard is really great. And I do know that there's lots of OTS sessions on Planboard if you're interested in looking at some of the archived ones or what's coming up in the future. Thank you, Amanda. While we were watching that really monotone, exciting video about the web component of Sesame, I went and looked up Fresh Grade, and the answer Heidi's question about what happens at the end. When you archive your class at the end in Fresh Grade, students can still access it if they go into their archive. So if they log into the app on their own, using their same login and password that they had when they were in your class, they can see any new classes they've connected to, but they can also go into archived classes and find the material back in there. Does that make sense, Heidi? Cool. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Grab the mic.
Yeah, sorry. I did have a question about that. So is there any responsibility, though, on the teacher's part to delete data after the year? Because as I understand terms and conditions, if I get explicit parent permission and I don't delete the data after a year, I have to keep that parent permission for 1 year that follows, like the actual piece of paper where they've signed off that I can share this information. And so if I never delete it so that the kids always have access, then I'm always responsible for it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So
that's
from a teacher's standpoint,
very good point.
Right. So from a teacher's standpoint, it's probably in my best interest to get rid of that information, which means the student would not have access to it anymore if they cannot themselves export it.
Yeah, or you're going to have to figure something out with your permission forms and with your board policies and have some very serious conversations about that. It is a read-only, and depending on what information you're putting in and what assessment data you're collecting in there and using with the grades, definitely going to have some conversations about what is happening after. And I do believe that their permission form addresses that. I'd have to go in and look and see what their actual terms are. I know that for some teachers in our school board, they went and took that permission form and had some administrators look at it and did any of the language that they needed to and then went from there. But I know that like in our board, we have policies over the amount of data and if it's continuous or what happens to it after the period of time. So it's definitely something to have those conversations about and check. So I'm just going to go through and see what other questions Laura's asked. Yep, absolutely, Laura. You can use the portfolio and ignore all of the lesson planner component. And does the Sesame app? The Sesame app is more for on-the-fly art, grabbing pictures and connecting them to the portfolio and those quick assessments. The lesson planning has to happen on the computer part. No problem. And it's driving me nuts because there was one other thing I wanted to mention about Sesame and I can't think of it right now. But I'm sure it'll come to me at some point in time. Okay. Well, it's not coming to me at any great speed. So I'm just going to check. I don't see any questions or hands up right now. So let's take a look. Our next tool is Seesaw. Oh, I was going to do a comparison on, nope, maybe I'm good. Okay, sorry, I'm having a brain meltdown. Okay, let's go on and take a look at Seesaw. Molly, we're going to look at that video link. And thank you. And let's do the same thing we did before, where we all go through the chat and we either copy or paste it or click on it and go and watch it, and then come back and have some discussion and questions around it. So I will just check and see how long this one is. And this one, there's a couple ones we can make some choices after. Okay, so this one's only about a minute and a half. So I'm going to pause or mute my mic now, and we'll go watch this one and come back with a green check mark when we come back. Thanks. Oh, that's a good point. Hold on, let me just get that. Molly, we've got the wrong video in there, sorry. Let me just grab the video link here. Okay, so this is the how to use, or it's called, sorry guys, Seesaw Learning Journal. Oh, there we go, Molly beat me. Okay, it's in the chat now, sorry folks. Oh, no worries. This is a nice and short video, so I will mute now. Okay, so I'm seeing lots of green check marks here. So that was a quick introduction to Seesaw. We're going to have, there's two other short little video clips that we can make a choice between in a second. Let me just kind of flip this side and see what there we go. So a couple things that make Seesaw different. There was no gradebook. There was none of the assessment component. This is really the portfolio component. And it does the portfolio part really, really, really well in terms of the features. So one feature it has that's brand new. So this is the tool that changed this week on me. I had this all kind of set, and I'll tell you what the new features are in a couple of seconds. I've made some notes here. But it's always my favorite, and it's inevitable. Every single time you are doing a session like this on digital tools, at least one of the tools changes features on you. Or it's always for the better, but you know, just makes life more complicated. There's an Apple TV app. So if you get one of the brand new Apple TVs that have the apps like an iPad does or an iPhone does, then you can get the Seesaw app, and if you log in, if you've got your Apple TV plugged into a monitor or a projector in your classroom, it will project your stream, your portfolio stream as it's going through. So may or may not be useful, and you may or may not have a brand spanking new Apple TV, but just in terms of their forward thinking and the way they're thinking about how classrooms work. The other thing that the Seesaw tool has is that I can take a picture or a blank whiteboard and the kids can draw. Or as a teacher, I can do feedback by drawing on their images. So it takes some of the features of different digital tools like the EduCreations or the Explain Everything. Not as rich as those tools, but it gives you that opportunity to draw over top of them. And you can synchronize that by recording your audio, drawing on the screen, and making a video out of it. So their portfolio also becomes a place to store the places that they're explaining their thinking. So if they're solving a math problem, they can solve the math problem and explain their thinking. If they're writing out, I don't know, I'm making stuff up, and I noticed that Amanda is Madame, so maybe she's French. I actually know that. She can write out, someone could write out their verbs and then verbally record them as well. So there's that kind of combination of the drawing and the audio recording to almost create that little video. The computer can now record from their web camera, and so you can click record, it'll activate the webcam on your computer as opposed to just being on mobile devices. And if you were having a conference with a student, you could record that using a laptop. Oh, and the other thing that Seesaw does, which instead of having the assessment component, they have the a blog component. So students are all collecting their journal information, and it's all private, right? You can see the stream of everybody's work, and they can only see their own work, and the parents can only see their work, their kids' work. But you have the option of creating a public class blog, and then you can post any of their portfolio artifacts to the public side. So now you have that ability to go between their private journals and to the world of now we want to share it with to that part where now we want to share it with the world, and get feedback from people outside of our classroom or share the learning from our classroom beyond our four walls, which is a huge part because a lot of people are using things like blogging for digital portfolios because they do have that public side, that way they can connect with others around the world on their learning and have that kind of side. So, so there's that kind of really nice component side. And then you can connect to another blog. So if you have classes that you work with on a regular basis, you can put a blog link to their blog, their Seesaw blog on your Seesaw blog, and then the kids can click on that link and it takes them to another class where they could comment on other kids' work that way. My understanding, Heidi, for that question, right, is that they use their Google Apps login. So for our board, that's great because there's no new login that they have to create. They just use their school board Google login. But I don't think I mean, you can add links to the Seesaw, so you could add Drive, but by posting links to them in there. Yeah. So my thought is, each video I think is about 2 minutes, but there's 2 videos here. One about the audio recording and drawing, and one about the connecting to other blogs. My thought is that we all go, and the videos are 12 seconds different in length. One's like 1:58, one's like 2 minutes and 5 seconds or something. But I was thinking we could each choose one of those videos to watch. Can I get a thumbs up if you are interested in watching one of those videos, or if you'd rather not watch? A check mark would mean that you would want to watch one of those 2 videos, and that sounds like a good plan. Okay. I'm thinking that people are thinking that's a good idea. Okay, so let's take a look, and we've got, oh, Mally's awesome, and she's posted both of those videos. So the first one is how to use the drawing and audio recording feature. The second video that Mally's posted in the chat is how to connect to other blogs for that public side. So let's go and each watch one of those videos and then come back and put a a green check mark when you've watched one of those videos. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to mute now, and we will go watch the video. Okay, I'm seeing lots of green check mark. Yes, the blogging feature is free. Other thoughts, questions about this tool? I really like the portfolio feature of this. The only problem from my perspective as a secondary, like from a total secondary perspective, and maybe this is a similar one, is to the to elementary concerns as well is that if I'm using a separate tool for grading and for sharing information with the students, like that assessment component, like the more summative assessment component, then I worry about sometimes too many tools. So this isn't integrated with the actual like a grade book or any sort of grading feature, but the portfolio for this is really quite rich, and the idea that you can go to that blogging so easily is really nice to have that side of it as well. Yeah, a lot of them don't have a maximum video for just recording video in the classroom, and this is the only one that lets you draw on the screen to make your video, and it's capped at 5 minutes. So most of them just for video recording aren't limiting it. It's just that it depends on how well your bandwidth is in uploading it. Oh, maybe Heidi. You know, I had never thought of that. You could, Heidi, because your students could put them to their portfolio as a draft, and then basically your way of pushing it public would just be placing it. So that's a possibility, Heidi, for sure. Yep, that's a good point, Caitlin, and that depends on your age too, right? And what what you and your parents want for sure. I'm just gonna check and see. Oh, let me just grab the other Seesaw upgrades that happened. So these are the ones that happened this week. Was the web support from the computer, so you can record now at your computer, so your desk. So if you're having a like conference. But the other one is a printable PDF with a QR code. So with Seesaw, if my kids put a picture in there or even a video, I can hit print, and it's going to give me a PDF that has a snapshot of the artifact and a QR code and then a place for notes. And you could post that on the wall, and then any kid or any teacher or any person could use their QR code, and it will take them directly to that artifact if it's a media one to watch. So they've given that print feature where it gives every, the minute you print any of the artifacts, it gives it a QR code that you can post up on the wall with a snapshot of the artifact. So that's a new feature they've started this week, or just released anyways, which we didn't get in that on my list here, sorry, on a slide deck before I submitted it. So that's an interesting new feature to connect to the physical world in your classroom, in your environment. I'm just seeing a couple chat comments, so I'm just going to kind of wait here for a second to see what people's thoughts are about this one. Any other thoughts or questions about Seesaw? That's a great point, Heidi. You could take that PDF and share it in your drive. Absolutely. That's a great point. Amanda, I have absolutely no idea. That's a great question. It is a very Weebly looking like interface, you're right, but I have absolutely no idea if they're the same company or not. Okay. OneNote Notebook. How many, can I get a green check mark if your school board uses Office 365? If you know that your office uses Office 365? Oh my, great. Look at this. Okay. Okay. So about half of us. Thank you, Mally. So this tool isn't going to do you a ton of good if you don't use it. Well, it could and it couldn't. It's kind of, I'm going to try to explain this without confusing myself, never mind everybody else. So OneNote in itself is on Office. I mean, you can create your own free Microsoft account, and you can use OneNote Online on the web, no problem. If you have any version of Microsoft Office, you have a copy of OneNote on your computer, and you can use that. You can download the free apps for any mobile device, and you can use OneNote anywhere you want. You can just sign in with your Office, your free, like what used to be Hotmail accounts, they're now usually Outlook accounts or whatever they are, and you can work on OneNote. And it is an amazing note-taking, note storage, organizational tool. You can type anywhere on the page, not just in lines. You can add images, you can add links, you can add audio recordings, You can add equations. You can draw on the screen on almost any device except for a Mac computer. You can format and play around, and then you can share and edit each other's as you share these around. Having Office 365 for Education lets you use a tool called the OneNote Class Notebook. And what that is, and we're going to watch a video on it, is that it takes your, because it's Office 365 for Education is connected to your student information system, and it takes your, and you add the names of your students, and it creates a, or the email addresses of your students, and it creates a notebook for your class. And it has 3 areas. It has a content area that the teacher can put any content they want. So you can put lessons in there, handouts in there, permission forms, and all kids can do is look at it or copy it to their own area if they need to edit it. They can't change anything in that content area. Then there's a collaboration area. In that collaboration area, everybody can edit. All students can edit anything that's in there. So you can have group work in there. You can have projects in there. You can have brainstorms, collaborative brainstorms in there. That collaboration space is for everybody to work in and edit. And then every single kid has their own folder or their own space that only the teacher and the student can see. So in my grade 9 math class, where every student has a laptop or a tablet in class, and we have those little USB tablets that let kids use with their own devices. They plug in the Wacom tablets and then they can write. They can open up OneNote, go to their area of the notebook, and work on some problems in there, and I can go in and look at it at any time and provide feedback and record my audio over their writing. I can give them a PDF and they can write over top of it. And it's all in this synchronized area. In the collaboration space, I would put in videos and links to real-world problems that we were working on. So we did a lot of Dan Meyer type problems where we had a situation and then we worked on different problems within that. In the collaboration space, different groups would work on it, and then we could all go in and look at each other's problem-solving strategies and compare strategies and that type of thing. And so it's a great tool as an e-portfolio tool because every student has their own area that only the teacher and the student sees, and there's a collaboration space. Last year, I know a secondary school, grade 8? No, maybe grade 9. Secondary school and our board used it with an environmental education program where the kids were out on the fly all the time. And so they did all of their writing and reflections in there on using the computer version, like on the web when they got into a computer lab. When they were out and about doing outdoor ed stuff, they had their phones and they had the app and they grabbed pictures and videos and stuff like that and documented notes and things and would put them in the app into their OneNote, and then they would organize them and sort them when they got onto the computer later. So there's a lot of potential here, but it's not like the other tools we've been looking at. There's no like stream of everybody's work. It's not like distinct artifact-based like the other ones. It's much more open in terms of you can just kind of put everything in there. So let's watch the video and then come back and ask any questions that we want to about it. So Mally's already put that link in there for us. I just need to mute my mic and stop talking away. So I will do that now, and let's take a look at the video that's on that web page, and then come back here.
Jacqueline, is it the one, is the video there, the OneNote.com class notebook?
Yes, the video's on that page.
Okay, thanks. I'll just add that that's a video then.
Okay, I think most of us have had a chance to look through or to watch that video. Just yell at me or scream at me if you haven't. Thoughts, questions? What are your on the OneNote as a potential tool for very different than the ones that we've looked at so far? Thoughts about using it as the idea of a digital portfolio or an e-portfolio? Has anyone used OneNote before? Any positives that you can think of it or struggles that you've had with it before? Do you use it for your own organization at all? I use the app on my phone and my computer all the time because you can clip websites to it. So when I want to read stuff, it all goes into my OneNote, and then I can organize it and read later. Yeah, I was actually going to make a comment on that, Caitlin. Thank you for pointing that out. Microsoft's big thing right now are all these a lot of Windows computers are going to these touch screens, and then they have these styluses that go with them. And so OneNote and them, they're all connected to the actual hardware. They're not their own styluses. There are some new Bluetooth styluses that are quite expensive that you can use on iPads and iOS devices, but Microsoft's big thing is creating like their Surface tablet that has that pen that goes right with it, which is amazing. Like it works really nicely, especially like when you are using OneNote and the math. It was a dream. But in a lot of courses, you don't need to write all the time as well. I used a Wacom tablet, so I spent about $50, $60 maybe, and it's a USB tablet that plugs into my work computer, which is a PC. I'm going to come back to that, Caitlin. And it lets me use that OneNote and draw with that pen on my computer. So I spend the $40 or $50 on a Wacom tablet to plug in to use OneNote. And what Caitlin's comments made there for the Apple, absolutely. I use my own personal computer is a Mac, and I use it all the time. But when I taught math, I taught with my teacher notebook from work, like my work PC computer, because of the OneNote lets you draw. The only device you can't draw now on a OneNote is the Mac computers. Laura. And how did that work, Laura? Did that work well? That's a neat use of it. Oh, good. That's neat. Yes, Caitlin, I agree. That's cool. Thanks for sharing that, Laura. That's a really neat way to use it. That's cool. Yeah, I think the OneNote is something that can be used as a portfolio and then as a class management tool, almost like both. It's kind of what it's, but there's none of the assessment component. There's no gradebook. There's none of that kind of stuff in there. But it is just a tool because each kid has their own folder within the big one. It's one way to manage e-portfolios if you're going to be having them bring in all sorts of stuff. Anyways, it's just one option that's out there. Again, another possibility. Any final thoughts on OneNote or things that you'd like to discuss or ask about OneNote? Okay. EduSite. EduSite, when I first went to look at it and play with it, I really did think it was very much like all the rest, where it was that stream of, and it is to an extent, the stream of the observations and the conversations that you're recording or taking pictures of. But the thing is that I was very shocked because I've worked with a lot of teachers that are working with this, but I'm really shocked. Students don't add to their own portfolios. There's no app. There's no mobile app for them to take pictures or to do videos themselves. The teacher adds it on the website. So it's a bit different. And then the students can see everything in the portfolio, but the teacher's the one kind of adding it mostly, unless the kids are on a computer all the time. But it really is more focused on the assessment component. So the really interesting, unique way of gradebooks and of documenting observations, conversations, and products. So let's take a look. It's 3 minutes, and I know we're getting close, but then we just have one short discussion after this one. So let's take the 3 minutes and look at it just to see it, because for some people this might be one way to merge, again, the assessment component with portfolios, or maybe in combination with another tool. But Mally's posted the video there, so let me be quiet again for 3 minutes, and let's take a quick look at this video and then come back and have a discussion. Okay, I'm starting to see some green check marks come in. I'll just wait a few more seconds. Awesome. So thoughts about EduSite? I think the one thing that makes EduSite different is it's a really rich, like, gradebook or assessment tool. I think it's the one thing that it doesn't have to keep in mind is that the students aren't archiving their own work. So you're missing that student ownership of documenting their learning. So, and that may or may not be a problem depending on your classroom setup and what it is that you're going to use it for. So maybe your kids have another way to share things with you and you put them in the portfolio. That's, maybe you're the one doing the documenting. Then that this tool might work very well for you. It does have access to the Ontario stuff in there, so there are benefits to it, and it does do that kind of that gradebook or that kind of coordinating very well. But it's missing that students archiving the ones for themselves. Any thoughts or questions about? Yeah, you can download the gradebook into Excel. No problem. I know, like in our school board, one of our schools uses this very heavily, and they quite like it. It's a secondary school, but they quite like it. We have people using in our school board using all of these different tools. There are different schools or different groups of teachers or teachers that are using all of these different tools. Yeah, this one has really nice visuals, doesn't it? I agree. And the flexibility in setting up your gradebook in here is nice. They have an option for standards-based. They have the Ontario version where things are separated into knowledge, inquiry, communication, and application. So there's definitely some benefits here. Just again, make sure that you're talking to your boards about policies and making sure that you have a good grasp on how your board expects you to work with student information. Every board is different, and you all have different policies, so just have conversations with your administrators and parents. Make sure the parents know. That's really, they just need to know, too, at the end what we're putting in online and saving, or sharing, sorry. Okay, anything else about EduSite? Okay. So now we have the Ontario Virtual Learning Environment, and maybe while I'm just chatting here, if we could have that link thrown up into the chat, that's awesome. It's just pictures, it's not a video. So if you want to take a look at that while we're chatting, then that would work. Basically what it is it's a slide deck, and you can just scroll through it, and you'll start to see kind of step-by-step information on how to use the virtual learning environment and the ePortfolio tool. And this was created by Tim Robinson. Tim Robinson created this tool. He worked up in Mason for a couple of years and created this support. Every single student in Ontario in a publicly funded school board technically has access to D2L, and you have the ePortfolio. And the ePortfolio app on a mobile device is great because you can snap pictures, do audio recording, and it goes right up into the student's device, into their portfolio, so they can access that on a computer, and it's all within D2L. You have, school board accounts that are created for you, so we know they're secure. Their material carries over beyond the teacher, and they can share materials with different teachers, different classes, hold on to it. It's just that you have to connect with the right people on your board to get access and to get in there. But every single school board has a technology-enabled learning teacher contact who is there to help you do this. So you just have to find out who that person is in your board if this tool works for you. As a teacher, you don't get a stream of all your kids coming together. You have your class, and you can go into each one of their portfolio that they've shared with you, but you don't have them all come together. You just have to go through each kid individually. There's also a gradebook tool. It's not amazing, but it's just a simple gradebook tool within D2L. And within D2L, there's also a news tool that you can send updates and whatever to students. So it is it's a great tool as an ePortfolio, and lots of support built in around boards to help you with it because it is a provincially funded supported tool. It just isn't necessarily always as flashy or as pretty as some of these other tools that we've been looking at that give you the stream of everything. So, so any thoughts? Has anyone used D2L before? Has anyone used it at all? Oh yeah, and of course, that's right. Right. So as a student, you probably didn't get a chance to use the ePortfolio tool. Okay. So, neat. So any thoughts or questions about the ePortfolio component of it? There is support for you if you want it in your board. You just have to kind of, start searching and dig up your TELT contact if you don't know who they are. If you can't find your TELT contact, then you'll have my email by the time we're finished. Just email me and I will figure out who it is. Yeah, no, it's not as user-friendly or as pretty. It's just that we know the security is not a problem. We know that the storage of information and it carries on with them. So there's benefits and there's negatives. Absolutely, Caitlin, I totally agree. It's nowhere near as user-friendly as some of those little web or app-based little tools. I 100% agree. It's not as pretty, but I think it'll get better as they go and more functional. Just something to keep on the radar for sure. Okay, and look at that timing. It's 8:59. I had this as a conversation to have at the end, which I've kind of put off. Google Apps for Education. Teachers that have Google Apps for Education in their board, students could create their own sites and their own forms, and it just and all of that is great. And if that's your workflow, that's awesome. It's just that you have to do manually what a lot of those digital tools did. You have to coordinate and organize all those files. So something to keep in mind. Great tools with a lot of those Google apps, like the docs and the slide decks and everything. You just have to organize everything yourself. Padlet is a free web-based tool that kids could technically use to just post images, video, and things kind of all not very organized, but it's a great entry point, something to do if you're doing you want to try out portfolios. And then the idea of blogging as a digital portfolio. The problem with blogging is that unless you set up the education way, I don't remember who it was that talked about it here earlier, sorry. Someone hopped in and said that they use EduBlogs and they use the private version of it really well. And that's one option, but a lot of blogs are public by nature, so a lot of their work is public automatically, so you have to find that happy medium between public and private for your portfolio work. But those are some other options. And just to, again, have that kind of recap, that different devices, this is in the slide deck, so you can take a look and see which ones work on what devices and the features. And my big curious question, or my big curious thought, is from all of these tools, could you throw up in the chat if there's a tool that you're interested in going and figuring out more to see if it's going to be the one for you or not, and what tool it is that's kind of piquing your interest right now? I'm totally curious, and this actually is very selfish as well because it's just interesting. Oh, cool. I like the diversity. Neat. Awesome. Cool. Thank you for letting me know that, folks. I really appreciate that. There's so many different tools for this type of thing out there. They really kind of all exploded at once. Yep. Any final questions or thoughts? How can I help you at all with that, Laura? Anything I can help sort out, or you just have like so many that look good, and you have to sort out what it is that you want to use it for? Yeah, I agree, Laura. I like so many of them. I want to use all of them, right? But there's those overlapping features that I don't want to have too many things for my students. So my math class, I did have too many. I used OneNote and I used that Sesame. And again, when were we going to put things in different places? And so I ended up not using either tool quite as well as we should have. But I should have stuck to one of them instead. But it is difficult to choose. Yep, Janet, it's great that you're aware of that. Unfortunate that you can't use them, but absolutely an important thing to check out and to always ask just to make sure. Well, I think that about wraps it up.
Thanks, Jack. I hope you don't mind that I put your contact information in the chat box because I know that you're really approachable and excited to share this information with others. So please reach out to Jacqueline if you have any questions. And I put her blog there as well because it really actually, she does some really interesting blog posts just on embedding technology in a meaningful way in her class, and she's a great person to follow and to get to know. So thanks everyone for participating in this evening's presentation. There's a couple things just to remind you of. One of them is if you could possibly or please fill out the survey at the end. It's a link. It's actually a link in orange, and it is a hyperlink, so it will take you directly to a feedback form that will provide OTF with some information about the session and what you think of the professional development through OTF, and it really has a twofold purpose, and one of them is to provide some feedback to Jacqueline, and the other is to give some data to the Ministry of Education who fund the program. So I'm going to actually put that link in the chat as well. The other thing that will happen when you go to that link and you fill out that form, it will take you to a certificate that you can download, and a certificate of participation from this evening, and add that to your professional portfolio. And finally, OTF offers some really great sessions that are coming up. There are a whole bunch that have just been added on math and using technology to enhance your math program, and it seems to be one session every evening, which is just great, and it's awesome that you're spending your evenings learning how to extend your professional learning. So thanks again, Jacqueline, and again, it's always great to learn. You have your wealth of information on so many levels, and we really appreciate you sharing what you know with us, and also always being accessible to help other people. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
So if you can, I'm just going to stop the recording.